What's that? Out in space, it's a station with a T-Rex face, firing lasers and playing games and killing all those herbivores. Out beyond the atmosphere, he's collecting stuff and striking fear. Come on board and grab a beer for gameplay vids and retro cheer. T-Rex Space Station.
Hi guys, it's Ben here. How's everyone doing? This is a video response to a question asked by Lifespiller 79. He asked, what's your biggest gaming regret? Or what's your group of biggest gaming regrets? I thought that was quite an interesting question to ask, and while my answers aren't particularly serious, I think it is kind of interesting to look back and to perhaps tell a few stories of things that I might have done differently if I had a chance to rerun them. I'm showing a bit of footage here of Metal Slug 3, which I'm running through Steam. It was on offer on the Steam sale this week, and I think I got it for about £2 or £2.50 or so. I have had quite a bit of fun with the Metal Slug games over the years. There used to be an arcade box in the Stretford Leisure Centre where I used to go swimming when I was at school, and I seem to remember it only being very cheap to play, like 20p or something. Even so, it's quite a hard game, and I wouldn't really get very far even with a pound's worth of credits in there. But it's quite an interesting game, and one that's fun to look back on and to play on the computer here, albeit with rather a large number of credits. Far more credits than I ever had when I was a kid anyway. Anyway, on to the question. So, when I was a kid, my parents had an Atari 2600 system, and I suppose that was the first gaming console that I ever really played, or certainly the first gaming console that we ever had at home. And, you know, it was my parents. They owned it in the 80s, and, you know, they bought all the games for it, and it was really theirs, but they did let me and my brother play it. It was one of my early exposures to video games in general, really. I used to love playing Space Invaders and Galaxian, and some of the two-player games, like I think it was called Combat, where you could shoot each other in tanks and helicopters and stuff. And, yeah, they've not got a huge collection, but still there's a reasonable number of games there. And from what I remember, the games were all boxed with manuals. Maybe not all of them, but most of them were. And, you know, as you do, me and my brother, we were kids, we used to faff around and mess about with them and change cartridges really quickly, and just didn't look after the Atari collection. And as a result, over the years, bits of the boxes got damaged and the manuals went missing, and essentially now the collection has been reduced to just the cartridges. We have still got the Atari 2600 box, but just not the actual game boxes and manuals, and that's a shame. That's something that I look back on and kind of think, we should take better care of that, really, because I guess as a kid I didn't realise the value of things like having a games console and a games collection, and now I'm an adult, you know, I do still play the Atari games, and I would like to start a collection myself, and maybe add to it. And it's just a bit of a shame that I, you know, had something there that was pretty cool and managed to, through my own idiocy, damage it and chuck stuff away. But, you know, that's the folly of youth, isn't it? It's easy to look back on it now, but, you know, I was a kid, like a really young kid, when I was playing on the system. So, yeah. The next thing that I'd like to come on to is, well, when I was younger, my parents didn't just sort of buy me consoles. I mean, they did start me off with the Sega Mega Drive, which was amazing. But after that, it was really down to me. So when the next generations came out, when the PS1 came out after the Mega Drive, it was up to me to raise the revenue to get to the next generation of console. And when I was younger, I wasn't really so much into the or about the collection, as in making a collection and stuff. It was more about just playing games and keeping up to date. So when the Mega Drive was the older console and the PS1 was the newer one, naturally I wanted to update to the next generation. And the only way that I could really raise the cash to do that was to sell my Mega Drive and my Mega Drive collection. I had some Master System games as well on one of those old converters. And I had absolutely no second thoughts about doing that at the time. Me and my brother, we pulled together and took it down to the local second-hand shop. And I seem to remember being quite shocked at how little money he gave me for it. Especially since I'd spent loads of money for those games. You know, I spent full price for them, buying them new from the shops at the time. And yeah, we just cleared it all out. You know, I must have had a lot of games. I've actually not managed to buy back all the games that I used to own even now. And part of that is because I've, you know, tried to choose games that I didn't play then to give me a fresh perspective on the Mega Drive. But also part of that is because it was actually a pretty big collection and one in relatively good condition. You know, I did look after my games back then, regardless of what I said about the Atari. By the time I was at the Mega Drive, I did look after my games really well. And so yeah, I wish that I still had my original Mega Drive and all those games that I had for it, because I would still enjoy them now. And obviously now I'm having to rebuild the collection from scratch, which, you know, is fun to do, but nevertheless. And then, you know, in a similar vein, when the PS2 came out, I got rid of loads of my old PS1 games, and it would just be kind of cool to still have them all. To be fair though, you can't collect everything, and maybe in hindsight actually it's not so much of a regret, because now I've got space to start new collections and I've got into the Nintendo 64 and stuff. So maybe that was just actually a bit of good, well-advised downsizing rather than a mistake. But yeah, I do have some regrets about how I treated those old Atari games and selling all my Mega Drive collection. But you know, that's just what happens, isn't it? You know, I didn't have infinite money and infinite resources. Something had to give. Now, the last sort of regret I would have is a bit of a story about when I was younger. Now, when I first started with computers and computer gaming, my dad had a 286 computer, and most of my friends had 486s, which were, you know, much cooler. They could run things like I think some of the fighting games and some of the racing games that I couldn't run on the 286. And I remember when the first kind of Pentiums came out and stuff, I begged my dad, and he was like, yeah, okay, well we got a new Pentium computer, and it was amazing. It had CD-ROMs and all that stuff, and you know, I played loads of games on there. I remember playing Screamer, the racing game, on it, and it was just fantastic. And you know, for some reason, I don't know, you always want more, don't you? And one of my friends from around the corner was really into PCs and stuff, and he was a bit of a dodgy guy, but he recommended you know, a bit of a RAM upgrade, and he said that he had some RAM available for me to use. So, like a gullible kid that I was, I told my dad, and we chipped in and we bought the RAM off him. And you know, my auntie was over from Canada at the time, and she knew about computers and stuff, so we opened it up and we put the RAM in. And I can still remember the almighty bang and the puff of smoke when we put the case back together and turned the computer back on, and we basically completely fried the motherboard and destroyed the computer. And I was really upset at the time. You know, that computer was like the first Pentium we ever owned, and it was amazing, and we're very privileged to have afforded it because it was not cheap. It was like $1,000 or something from what I remember. And I went to my friend and I was like, what the hell was that? Was something wrong with that RAM? And it transpired that he basically found the RAM in a knackered, abandoned computer in the park. What a twat. I was so pissed off about that and really upset about it. And that's such a big regret of mine, that I trusted my bloody Muppet friend from around the corner who's selling me knocked off stuff. And perhaps also regret, you know, maybe fiddling with a computer that I didn't fully understand. But to be honest with you, that's how you learn, isn't it? And I have disassembled and reassembled computers after that as part of the learning process, and they haven't fried them. So I think it was all down to him. What a bastard. Anyway, that was years ago, and we're all over that now, but I was very upset at the time. So there you have it. Those are some of my stories about my biggest gaming regrets. I'll be interested to hear your responses too, guys. I'll include a link to Lifespiller's original video in the description below. So maybe comment to this video or even do a video response. Anyway, thanks for listening. Speak to you all soon. Bye.